There is a royal residence that has been making headlines recently for all the wrong reasons. Earlier this year, we learned the news that the California-based Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had been informed by the palace that they needed to leave Frogmore Cottage. Now, they had kept it as their British base ever since 2020. As we understand things, the house has been offered to Prince Andrew instead, after the news came out that he probably has to leave his 30-room royal lodge because he can't afford the upkeep costs. But while the tension that has been experienced by the royal family and Meghan and Harry has lasted for many months now, the scandalous past of Frogmore Cottage stretches back actually more than a century. Once upon a time, the cottage was home to Queen Victoria's loyal Indian manservant Abdul Karim. He was kicked out and deported after his mistress passed away in 1901. Her relatives for a long time had been very suspicious of him. Their relationship actually inspired the 2017 film Victoria and Abdul. It was starring Judi Dench as the monarch and Ali Fazal as Karim. And not far away from Karim's former home is the royal burial ground, where King Edward VIII and his American divorcee wife Wallis Simpson, later known as the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, are buried. His 1936 abdication left him a pariah. And then there's also the much nicer Frogmore House nearby. This residence was originally built for Queen Charlotte, the wife of King George III, the monarch who famously lost his mind. In 2018, the late Queen Elizabeth gave Harry and Meghan use of Frogmore Cottage because their relationship with brother William and Catherine started to fall apart. Before that, it had been converted into 5 separate apartments for estate staff, but it was knocked back into one big home with a private garden. Initially, the cost of renovation, which was $2.4 million, was covered by the taxpayers, but then Prince Harry and Meghan agreed to foot the bill themselves. At the beginning of March, a spokesman for the couple confirmed that they had been requested to vacate their residence at Frogmore Cottage. And it probably was not a coincidence that that decision came right after the release of Prince Harry's bombshell memoir Spare, in which he fired some fresh ammo at his father King Charles and his brother Prince William. Frogmore Cottage was built for Queen Charlotte's gardener so that he could be close to her glasshouses, where she liked to grow shrubs and trees that were planted in the surrounding park. Karim was known as the Munshi or teacher, and he had a lot of influence over Queen Victoria, which left many of her aides and family members feeling scandalized. While they hated him, Her Majesty would not hear anything bad about him. The two met in 1887, the year of the Queen's Golden Jubilee, when the monarch, then aged 68, had been Empress of India for 10 years. She loved the country, and so she hired some Indian staff, including 2 male servants, one of whom was Karim, then only 24 years old. In her journal, she described them, writing, "The one Mohammed Bush, very dark with a smiling expression, and the other, much younger, called Abdul Karim, is much lighter, tall, and with a fine, serious countenance. His father is a native doctor in Agra. They both kissed my feet." Karim soon turned to teach his boss Hindustani, which is how he earned his nickname, and the two of them became incredibly close. The Queen signed notes to him as "your loving mother," and among the phrases that he taught her were "the tea is always bad at Osborne House" and "you will miss the Munshi very much." Well, the servant ended up feeling the void that was left by the passing of her beloved John Brown, the Scottish attendant who passed away back in 1883. Their close relationship was also portrayed in a different film, the acclaimed Mrs. Brown in 1997, which also starred Dame Judi Dench as Victoria. Karim continued to stay by the Queen's side even when she was warned by royal physician Sir James Reed in 1897. There are people who say the only charitable explanation is that Your Majesty is not sane, and the time will come when, to save Your Majesty's reputation, it will be necessary for me to come forward and say so. The medic also reported that Munshi's claim about his own father being a doctor was not true. "To make out that the poor, good Munshi is low is really outrageous," she informed him, going on to say that she had known 2 archbishops who were the sons of a butcher and a grocer. Sir James also let Queen Victoria know that the Munshi was suffering from an STD called gonorrhea. But Her Majesty, who had basically been mourning since 1861 when her husband Prince Albert passed, showed Karim how much she really appreciated him by showering him with honors. She made him an Indian private secretary and a companion of the Indian Empire. She even awarded him the Eastern Star. His name would also show up in the court circular of official royal engagements, while the Queen had a portrait of him commissioned. And in exchange, Karim introduced the Queen to chicken curry and dal, which actually became a part of the royal menu. Karim had his own servant too, as well as a cat and a canary, and Victoria gave him his own set of rooms at her beloved Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. In the final year of Queen Victoria's life, Karim was receiving quite the salary. He was being paid a handsome sum of £922. That's the equivalent of more than £100,000 today. But when Queen Victoria passed away, that led to quite the turn in Karim's fortunes. Edward VII dismissed him and sent him right back to India. He also decided that all the letters that he exchanged with Queen Victoria should be burned. The former servant passed away in his homeland in 1909 when he was 56 years old. After Karim left, Frogmore was lived in by Queen Mary's brother, the Marquess of Cambridge. The Marquess's daughter, Lady Helena Gibbs, also went on to live there. And then from 1925 until 1934, the home was a place of sanctuary for Grand Duchess Xenia, the sister of Tsar Nicholas II. She was actually one of the very few members of the Russian royal family who was able to escape after the Bolsheviks ordered the murder of Tsar Nicholas and his whole family. And then we got another Russian in there, the notorious Princess Marina Mira Dmitri, who secured a lease on the cottage. With the assistance of an MI5 dossier, recently the Mail on Sunday reported how the Princess Mira perpetuated quite an amazing story of blue-blooded betrayal and deceit. Not only was she looking out for extramarital sex, which included an affair with the late Queen's uncle, the Duke of Kent, but by most accounts, she was also a spy. She came to Britain in January of 1932 with her husband, a Russian prince, and from the beginning she was off looking for trouble. Princess Mira was good friends with fashion designer Anna Volkov, who by the beginning of the Second World War had joined a secret fascist society in London, and their aim was to help the Nazis overthrow the British government. Now, eventually, secret agents working for Britain were able to uncover Volkov. She was arrested, and then in 1940 she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But the spying had actually been going on for a few years at that point. More recently, Frogmore Cottage hosted junior chefs working for the royals. Darren McGrady, who became the Queen's chef, lived there early on in his career, and he talked about how the facilities were basic and, he said, a little bit run down. And you, what do you think about this mystery? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments. If you think my video is useful, remember to like and share it with anyone else who would enjoy it. And